Good morning, and good afternoon, good evening, good wherever you are. I'm your host, That Lit Astro Chick, the channel where we discuss the natal charts of writers, artists, and anyone else that I find interesting. So for today's natal chart, I thought that it would be fun to cover someone who is currently now in the news in a way, because her epistolary novel, The Color Purple, was recently turned into a remake of a movie. There was an original movie about 30 years ago, and that movie has now been remade with an all-new cast. Sidebar, I don't think that we needed the remake. I haven't watched it, but I don't think that we needed it because the first movie was so awesome. And also, it's the 29th. Do you have any idea how rare it is that we get 29 days in February? And you probably know it's every 4 years. But I thought that it would be fun to record a video on none other than the wonderful author Alice Walker. So I'm just going to read a little bit from her Wikipedia page and then get into her natal chart. So Alice Walker is an American novelist, short story writer, poet, and social activist. In 1982, she became the first African American to win the Pulitzer Prize for Fiction, for which she was awarded for her novel The Color Purple. Over the span of her career, Walker has published 17 novels and short story collections, 12 nonfiction books, and collections of essays and poetry. So I have only read about a handful of her stories, and I read The Color Purple when I was around 14, I want to say. And I was really moved by the fact that it was an epistle, so it was like a throwback tale, because we don't have that many of these anymore. And it's also because it was a story about womanhood. It was the story about, I believe she based it on her grandmother. So without further ado, let's get to her chart. Alice Walker was born on February 9th, 1944 at 3:20 a.m. in Eatonton, Georgia. So at the first thing that I noticed about her chart is the fact that she's a full moon baby. So Alice Walker, she has an Aquarius sun, and that's in opposition to her moon in Leo. It seems like I talk about Aquarians a lot on this chart, but that's because they deal a lot with the 11th house matters that deal with networks as well as with communication. And Mercury is exalted when it's in Aquarius. So this is a sign that's very good at communicating their ideas. Now, what's interesting is that she does have a Leo moon. And typically speaking, in a natal chart, a sun in opposition to the moon, it's going to be one of the most challenging positions I think that you could have in a chart, because that typically is going to mean that there's going to be some ways in which their communication is stifled because your sun sign. This deals with the father in your life, the way that men show up in your life, children, and to a certain extent friends. And then the moon, that deals with your fourth house matters, such as your home life, your subconscious, as well as who you are in terms of your emotions. So to have those signs in opposition, it's usually going to represent having two opposing needs when it comes to what it is that you need as far as your ego, as well as what it is that you're going to need from people in terms of your emotional life. I believe that Meg Thee Stallion also has this exact same setup in her chart. She is an Aquarius sun and a Leo moon. So this could represent a lot of challenges for her in terms of her communication, as well as the ways in which she might present herself and what might go on in terms of her life. I don't know that much about Alice Walker's life, but I do know that for a while, don't know if she has gotten back in contact with her daughter, but she was estranged from one of her daughters for a long period of time. Now, one of the positive parts of this opposition, I think, is that it does give you a lot of room in order to express yourself. So that is something that I definitely see within her chart. I also do see that there was most likely some type of stifling in terms of who it was that she wanted to be versus who she could have been in the past. And I say that because she does have her moon, Leo moon, that is running parallel to her north node, which is also in Leo. And her north node is conjunct to her Pluto in Leo. So what I'm noticing when it comes to these writers' charts about who is successful and who is not, one thing I do see is if the north node is conjunct to Pluto, because Pluto does refer to support. this could refer to an area in which this writer will get support or where they will find a lot of success in this lifetime. So as a Leo North Node, that means that Aquarius is on the south. So she could have been somebody who in a previous lifetime, let me take a look at her houses. In a previous lifetime, so this would be the second house. She could have been somebody who maybe could have been part of a collective, especially when it came to communication or when it came to values. So she could have been somebody who could have acquired wealth with a group of people in a previous lifetime. And then in this particular lifetime, she was supposed to lean back on other people in order to get their support. And I say that because she does have her Pluto and her North Node in the 8th house. And the 8th house deals with regenerative elements. It deals with sex. It deals with death. It also deals with inheritances, so things that we don't earn, because Pluto refers to support that we may not necessarily earn, in addition to disruptions that we may have felt in our lifetime. Now, Pluto functions very well in the 8th because that's its natural house. Since Scorpio is the sign of Pluto, that's the 8th sign. So Pluto in the 8th house would be somebody that would end up being very successful, specifically when it comes to this lifetime. But I do think that this could have been a challenge for her, and maybe a challenge that would have started initially with men. And I say that because her South Node is also running parallel to her Aquarius Sun. And she could have probably had issues with men throughout her life. I also say that because her Sun, it does run contraparallel to her Pluto, which is in Leo. So when it came to the time in which she was born, the way that she thinks, it's going to be very different than the time that she would have had when she was born. And in addition to that, it looks like her Lilith, that is also in conjunction with her moon. So perhaps growing up, Alice could have been somebody to where maybe she was told that she shouldn't be in the spotlight and that she should be someone who was going to blend in the background. Or maybe her mother could have possibly put her in situations to where she felt like she couldn't be in the spotlight with other people or recognized for her talents. Therefore, it could have been something that would have felt very secretive to her, and maybe something where she would have worked a lot towards breaking free of that. But typically speaking, if somebody has their moon in conjunct to their Lilith, it's going to be something that will be very apparent to them when it comes to the ways that they communicate. So one of the first things that they have to learn how to do is to break away from the habits that may have been reinforced with their family. And because it is in that 8th house, her moon is in her 8th house, it could have dealt deep within her subconscious. However, her Lilith is in the 9th house, and the 9th house, typically speaking, is going to deal with communication when it comes to people that are foreign to us, because the 9th house does deal with travel. So she could have taken what she could have learned from home and then possibly rejected some of those ideas about not being a star and not standing out, because in this lifetime she was supposed to stand out, and then she would have possibly gotten a very wide reach when it came to people that were perhaps outside of her community. I know that the Pulitzer Prize, it can also sometimes be very, how do I explain this? Very whitewashed. I still feel like it's very whitewashed, but this could have been like that first attempt to really reach out to other people through her writing to discuss what went on in the home and then to pass it on to a larger audience. And I say that because, as I had said before, The Color Purple was based on a story or a tale loosely from her grandmother. Another aspect that points to celebrity is because her Jupiter is also running parallel to her Pluto, and that's in Leo, and her Jupiter is also conjunct to her moon. So this meant that by embracing those darker aspects, and it's also because her Jupiter is conjunct to her Lilith as well, by embracing those darker aspects of what made her special and what made her who she was, that was how she was able to reach the fame that she had in terms of her writing. It also would be another aspect of having a lot of lucky breaks that would have been handed to her, because she does have her moon conjunct to her Jupiter, as well as her Jupiter running in opposition to her sun. So Jupiter in opposition to the sun, it's going to represent somebody who is going to be very lucky in terms of the breaks that they get. They'll have a lot of opportunities that are just going to fall within their lap. So that's also something that I found to be really, really in her chart about the reach that she had with her. In addition to that, she also has a very strong aspect in terms of who she is. And I say that because her Pluto sextiles her Mars in Gemini. So she is somebody who spent a lot of time and a lot of energy with her thought processes. And those are working very well in tandem with the other parts of her chart. And I say that because she also has her moon sextiling her as well. So the way that she communicates would be authentic to who she is. And in addition to that, her Mars is running, it's trining with her Aquarius sun. So those are all harmonious aspects that I see in the chart. There's also the fact that her namesake would have been very important to her. And I say that because she also has her running parallel, her Mars in Gemini is running parallel to Saturn in Gemini. So she may have had an issue in terms of communication, but she did work a lot in order to overcome those issues. And she may have had to different experiences in terms of her breaks, because she also has her Uranus, and that is conjunct to her Mars and Gemini as well. So it would have taken a lot of challenges in order to overcome having that Saturn and Gemini with finding the right words to speak. And I think that she did that very beautifully in terms of her writing. In addition to that, she could have been somebody where we're having a dream or having fantasies about union would have been very important to her as well, and could have given her an ethereal aspect, because she does have her Neptune, and that is trining with her sun. Her Neptune is in Libra. And in addition to that, she may have also felt a desire to be recognized for her service. And I say that because she does have looks like it's her Venus. It's trining with her Chiron in Virgo. So Chiron in Virgo is going to refer to someone who really wants to be recognized for their service and their ability to help others, as well as being recognized for their work. So all of those sixth house matters. And this would have been very important to her in terms of her public image, because her Chiron is conjunct to her midheaven, which is also in Virgo. And that is in a quincunx to her sun in Aquarius. So it could have taken some adjustments in order to get around that. And I think that she could have focused a lot more on trying to achieve those adjustments when it came to her namesake, because she does have her Mars and her Saturn that are trining that in Virgo, as well, that are squaring that Chiron in Virgo. And she also has her Uranus, which does also square her Chiron in Virgo as well. So I didn't want this one to be too. So I think that I'm just going to wrap this one up by discussing one of her fixed stars, and it's only because I want to get some practice with talking about fixed stars. But the fixed star, Celis Astral, I'm probably going to have to add this in the comment section. That is conjunct to her North Node in Leo. And the reason why this star is so important is because it tends to show a representation of somebody who would be a poet, a painter, a musician, someone who's going to be very gifted in terms of their words as well as with the arts. So that, I think, is another representation of where she was able to get her success. So this now concludes my natal chart reading of Alice Walker. Please make sure to share and like and give the video a thumbs up. And I look forward to connecting with you in the next video.